Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. An update on a train derailment that happened in 2019 in the tunnel between Port Huron and Sarnia. Today, the Transportation Safety Board releasing a report. Plus, a North Buxton woman who has dedicated decades of her life to preserving Black history is retiring. We take a look back at Shannon Prince's career. And have you got all your Christmas shopping done yet? We check in with some Windsorites 5 days before Christmas. A new report has been released on the cause of the train derailment in the tunnel between Sarnia and Port Huron. It happened back in 2019. Today, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada is blaming a structural defect in one of the rail cars. And as the CBC's Dale Molnar reports, it's raised concerns about rail safety in Canada.
4 years after the derailment inside the underground rail tunnel between Sarnia and Port Huron, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada found that structural defects in this gondola car caused it to collapse under the weight of its load of scrap steel. The aging car was first built in 1978. The derailment resulted in a tank car being ruptured and spilling about 52,000 liters of sulfuric acid. No one was injured, but Sarnia Mayor Mike Bradley calls the findings alarming.
Should be of concern to every Canadian mayor and city because the rail lines run through the heart of our communities. It's quite disturbing to read the age of the equipment and the lack of upgrades to the equipment, even though they knew there were issues there. That is really concerning.
An occupational and environmental health researcher says this and other rail incidents point to a lax attitude toward regulations.
The government has not been overseeing what's been going on. The report that was issued, has a litany of lack of inspections, defects in the cars, kind of using even vehicles that seem totally inappropriate for and unsafe.
But following the derailment, CN did make some changes to improve safety. CBC News asked CN about the TSB findings, and a spokesperson emailed a statement saying, CN continuously applies what it learns from incidents and events to advance safety, a core value at CN. As mentioned in the recent TSB report, immediately after the derailment, CN undertook an inspection of similar cars and subsequently modified its inspection processes for this specific car type. Following recent instructions from the Association of American Railroads, all cars of this make, model, and vintage are now subject to mandatory inspections. But Mike Bradley still wants to see Transport Canada step up enforcement.
CN has a job to do, and that's moving the rail. They're a big part of this community. But certainly in this day and age, you would expect better, given the history of Canada with rail incidents and tragedy, that this is not acceptable.
Bradley expects to follow up on this report either with the Ministry of Transport or CN. CBC News is still awaiting a response to a request from Transport Canada for comment. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor police say 6 people have been defrauded of nearly $250,000. Police say they received complaints last month about a 40-year-old man who claimed he owned a business. He allegedly convinced investors to hand over more than $244,000. Investigators say that money was never intended to be used for investment purposes. The accused has been charged with theft over $5,000. Windsor police say there could be other victims. Now, Canada's Minister of International Development was at St. Clair College today. He announced that $9.9 million federal dollars are being devoted to improving youth employment in Iraq.
One of the key areas of focus for our foreign policy is the Middle East and North Africa. We have a Middle East strategy that is focused on stability, resilience, and economic development, and this leads directly to that. And Iraq is central to that policy. Our biggest focus in our Middle East strategy is Iraq. Like I said, this is a long-term play because investment in the stability and economic resilience of countries like Iraq in the Middle East is in Canada's national interest.
We'll create a new project called Training and Workplace Advancement Solutions for Opportunities in the Labor Force in Iraq. The project is a partnership with the World University Service of Canada. Hussein said increasing the participation of Iraqi women in the workforce will be part of the project. The Liberals say the announcement was made in Windsor in recognition of the city's large Iraqi community. There's a new monument on the St. Clair College campus, a giant peace symbol.
It's 20-foot diameter, and then it's on, I believe, a 3-foot pedestal. The weight is just under 2,000 pounds. It's extremely corrosive resistant against elements and any atmospheric conditions, so it'll hold up for a long time.
Well, we finally have the installation of the peace sign, and I think the sign says it all. It's a place of peace, a place of safety, a place of gathering. With the beautification budget that we have is about $800,000 for the whole thing. It'll be the sign, the sitting area, the cement, the pathways, and all the landscaping. But we think it's important to have a footprint for staff, for students, and our community. So I guess to a degree, peace and love wins.
For the last 25 years, Shannon Prince has been the curator of the Buxton National Historic Site and Museum, located about 20 minutes outside of Chatham. It's known as one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad. Prince, who's a descendant of slaves, has been helping preserve the history for much of her life. Now she's closing a chapter in her own book as she prepares to retire.
This is my Aunt Manetta, this is my grandmother, and this is my other aunt, Aunt Arlie.
On the walls of the Buxton National Historic Site and Museum, historical artifacts belonging to Shannon Prince's family are on display.
I know they're beaming with joy and pride of how we are continuing the legacy that they have started.
For more than 2 decades, Prince has been the protector and collector of historical artifacts, telling the story of her own history and the families in North Buxton who sacrificed everything to escape slavery.
This is community. You can see looking all around. Yeah, everybody has a piece of themselves in this museum.
But after 25 years as the museum's curator, she's decided to retire.
I think every day was a highlight. Yeah, it really was.
One of those highlights when the museum was designated as a National Historic Site, which also was Prince's first year on the job.
A lot of Canadians who, even in our own backyards, who are not aware of Buxton, and that's sad. To me it is, because local people, need to know that there's good, rich history in their own backyard.
This is where they settled, this is where their roots were.
She quickly became one of the prominent faces of the community while representing the area nationally and internationally.
Her dedication is phenomenal, not only to the museum, but to this community. Her connection with people, the kind of person that she she has a magnetism about her that goes a long ways.
Michelle Robbins, a 7th-generation descendant of the area, is the museum's new curator.
To be able to carry on, the legacy that everyone that has come before me, some amazingly powerful people, individuals, women, it was a no-brainer for me.
She knows she has some big shoes to fill.
It's an honor to be able to follow in her footsteps.
Reverend King's diary, I love it. And when you tell people that you have his diary, they're like, really? It's been one heck of a journey. It really has, and I've enjoyed.
Prince's legacy will stand with the other stories now, held safely between the museum's walls.
I have just added another chapter to that amazing book that my family and other families and different people in the community have started. And I think that was my whole goal, as long as I could add a chapter.
We are wishing Shannon all the best in her next chapter. 5 more days until Christmas, which means 5 more days to buy gifts for your loved ones. The CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa hit the mall today to talk to some shoppers.
I am at Devonshire Mall today. I'm known to be someone that typically gets Christmas gifts the last week of Christmas. It's pretty chaotic. I'm rushing around trying to find the perfect gift for everyone. This is actually the first year that I'm on time. I've got all my gifts. I think I have 1 more left, but I know there's other people that might be last minute Christmas shopping. So I'm at the mall and I thought I'd ask around and find out. Let's go. So where are you at with your holiday shopping?
Just started. I just started with my holiday shopping. Matter of fact, today's day 1. and I'm actually giving this gift in like 4 hours.
Is this usually who you are around the holidays?
100%. I'm a very passionate and unapologetic procrastinator when it comes to buying gifts.
Are you done your holiday shopping?
Done maybe a couple little things, but yeah, I'm done and wrapped.
Done and wrapped. And like we said, that's elite status we're talking about. How does it feel? And is that usually who you are at this time of year?
Most of the time, yes. There's some years that are a little, different, but yeah, it feels good, but then I keep thinking I'm forgetting something.
Are you done with your holiday shopping?
No, not. Well, I'm getting close.
Most definitely not done shopping, and if I had 10 more days, I would be shopping for 10 more days.
I am last minute shopping, and I still have no idea what to buy anybody.
That is the worst spot to be in.
I shop for about 12 people. Yes.
Oh, wow, that's a lot. Okay, are you feeling confident at this point?
Absolutely not. I have about 3 gifts bought for one person.
Is that kind of the bad thing about finishing early, is then you keep finding more gifts to buy as you get closer to?
Sometimes, yes. Or if I've hidden them and forget where I hid them, that's pretty bad when I'm ahead of the game.
I still got how many days until Christmas? 5 days? That's 5 new days, 5 new gifts, 5 new people I could, cheer up.
Will it get finished in the next 4 to 5 days?
100%. I don't miss.
The hospital is not the place you want to be at Christmas, but it's an unfortunate reality for some children in our community. 9-year-old Lauren Meadows and 7-year-old Megan Patrick wanted those kids to feel a little more at home. So they collected 500 pairs of PJs for the pediatric floors at 3 hospitals, including Windsor Regional. CBC Windsor was there for the drop-off today.
I wanted to help kids in need because they don't have clean pajamas for Christmas.
This donation is very important. This is our second time we've done this. There was a pause in between. Megan was diagnosed with leukemia on Christmas Eve, 2018. We were transferred from Windsor Regional back over to London. We had nothing with us, nothing on Christmas Eve. We were told she has cancer, and we were starting treatments that day. I remember sitting there and thinking, I don't have her Christmas Eve pajamas, and that really broke me. When Megan was done treatment, we went and we started up this fundraiser, and it did really well. Megan did relapse, so we did pause it for a year because of her treatment. And then this year, Lauren, her friend, for her birthday wanted to help, and she chose Megan's foundation as the charity she wanted to donate to. And Lauren started it up, we put it up online, and it just exploded. So yeah, we're very, very proud of this.
It's so heartwarming to see not just these young kids really step up and give back to those in need during the holiday season, but also to see the community really rally behind them and show support for the kids that are undergoing treatment over the holidays.
It is excruciating to be a parent and your child is in the hospital over Christmas. It is heartbreaking. I hope not one of these pajamas are used, but I know they will be. And it's devastating. And if there's one mom that's sitting there and she's thinking about, I forgot this or I forgot that, or I don't have my Christmas pajamas, I hope she gets one of these pairs and it brings just that little tiny bit of Christmas magic into that room, because so much is taken from families like ours, and we just want to give it back.
CBC Windsor's Sounds of the Season campaign is not over just yet. We're still collecting non-perishable food items here at our offices on Riverside Drive and Crawford. So far, we've collected nearly 11,000 pounds of food and raised more than $18,000. That's all thanks to your generosity and the many organizations that have partnered with us to help those in need. All of this goes to the UHC Hub of Opportunities. We'll be collecting donations up until December 31st. Josiah Sinanen is standing by with your weather forecast and an update on what kind of conditions we may be in for as the holidays get closer. Stay tuned. Joining us now for the weather forecast is Josiah Sinanen. Josiah, what's in store for the next few days?
Yeah, Meg, a bit of an unusual forecast for this time of year. Let's take a look at that 5-day coming up ahead here. Tonight, we are currently, right now, we're sitting between 1 and 2 degrees, and we are expecting a few clouds and some moderate wind up to 15 kilometers an hour. That will be dropping to -3 overnight. Tomorrow, a high of 5 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud throughout the day. And right now, that is looking like possibly the last glimpse we'll have of the sun for the week, Meg. Friday, we're seeing a high of 4 with cloud cover throughout the day. And finally, looking towards the weekend, Saturday, we're still expecting that 30% chance of rain during the day with a high of 6. And Christmas Eve, Sunday, that temperature dial is on the up, a high of 9 and cloudy. It's not cooling down too much overnight either with a low of 7. So Santa might want to browse through some of his beach button-ups before he hops on the sleigh.
Well, I've been vocal about the fact that I don't love the cold weather, but if there's one day I wanted to see snow, it would have been on Christmas.
Of course.
So I think this goes without saying that we're not going to have a white Christmas this year.
Yeah, it's not looking that way, Meg, unfortunately. And I looked a bit further ahead. I did a little sneak peek for us. And Christmas Day, that pattern is sticking around. It's looking like it's going to hit a high of 10 degrees that day.
Well, I'm thinking maybe Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus could sew him some red shorts or something like that.
Yeah, Meg, I think that's actually a good idea. We actually spoke to Environment Canada's senior climatologist, Dave Phillips, and he gave us a bit of insight into why the conditions are so mild this year. He said it's a, quote, done deal. That means no white Christmas coming up ahead. And of course, that weather can always turn on a dime, but it is seriously unlikely. So a couple factors there. Of course, the El Nino pattern that we're all familiar with, that warm water band in the Pacific Ocean makes for a milder winter. And also, this is part of a general decrease in the likelihood of white Christmases in our region overall due to climate change. So Phillips was saying in the 60s, 70s, 80s, the chance of a white Christmas here was 56 to 60%, and now that's dropped to more like 40 to 43%. So
Ooh.
Yeah, an interesting shift there,
Yeah.
but less and less likely to see white Christmases
For
in our
anybody who
region.
wants to go tobogganing or anything like that on Christmas, that's not great news. Give us some positive here.
Yeah, you might not be able to go tobogganing, but there are other things and things we can be optimistic about. And yesterday I talked about that 3-week stretch where we had no sun last year, which of course we all remember. And if you remember last year as well around Christmas, that was quite harsh. It was a white Christmas, but those snowstorms that came with the snowfall caused some serious problems for travel and road safety. So a lot more clear roads this year and other ways to take advantage of the missing snow. And you're starting to see that show up in nature yourself, aren't you, Meg?
Yeah, absolutely. I've even heard frogs in the past few weeks at my parents'. Thank you so much for that, Josiah. That is Josiah Sinanen.
Thank you.
And he's been filling in for weather. Coming up, we've got a little bit more. Stay tuned. U.S. President Joe Biden says it's self-evident that former President Donald Trump is an insurrectionist. The comment comes in response to a historic ruling by the Supreme Court in Colorado. Judges there are keeping Trump's name off the ballot in the state's Republican primary vote. CBC's Richard Madden has more on the ruling and reaction to it.
The bombshell ruling by Colorado's High Court has determined former President Donald Trump violated the U.S. Constitution's so-called insurrection clause and ordered his name be removed off the state's presidential primary ballot. Now, the court, citing his role in the January 6 riots on Capitol Hill, used a little-known section from the 14th Amendment to disqualify a presidential candidate, labeling him an insurrectionist, an old law from the Civil War era meant to keep Confederate sympathizers from returning to power. This is the first ruling of its kind in U.S. history. And while it doesn't apply outside Colorado, it poses an immediate threat to Trump's candidacy.
Frankly, this case is only here because Trump's actions himself. He is the person who has led to this decision that he is disqualified because he tried to steal the presidency from the American people.
Now, the Colorado judges were all appointed by Democratic governors. They've paused their decision until January 4th, just one day before its deadline to certify candidates for the state's primary. Trump's lawyers plan to appeal this ruling all the way to the Supreme Court, possibly setting up a monumental decision from a court where Trump appointed 3 of its judges. Now, Trump needs them to restore his name on the ballot. How the court will handle this case and how fast they'll make their decision is anyone's guess. This is the latest major legal problem for Trump, who has a commanding lead in the Republican primary. And so far, he's playing the victim and trying to turn the tables, accusing Democrats of being a threat to democracy. Even his Republican rivals campaigning against him are rallying to his side.
We don't need to have judges making these decisions. We need voters to make these decisions. So I want to see this in the hands of the voters.
They're criminalizing politics, and that's what Trump is facing.
I do not believe Donald Trump should be prevented from being president of the United States by any court. I think he should be prevented from being president of the United States by the voters of this country.
Many Democrats have voiced their support for the ruling, saying there's ample evidence the former president incited an attack on their democracy and there should be consequences. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
With Ottawa's new plan to accelerate the use of electric vehicles, there's a new concern about a desperate lack of charging stations. On top of charging ports EV owners might have at home, it's expected Canada will need nearly 500,000 individual public charging ports to meet the eventual demand. Right now, there are just 25,000. CBC's Katie Nicholson has more.
When Claude Michon needs to juice up his EV, he has to drive it to this public charging station.
Park the car, charge it, and walk home, about a 15-minute walk from here, and then walk back the next morning, pick the car up fully charged.
There's nowhere to charge it in his condo building, and the parking lot next to his place doesn't have enough power for even one charging station. Retrofitting condos and parking lots with EV chargers isn't cheap, anywhere from hundreds of dollars to thousands if the transformers that feed the building need to be upgraded.
The cost is dramatically lower if you do it during the build as opposed to a retrofit.
At the University of Toronto, Olivier Trescas is part of a research team developing new EV charging technology. He says it's best that developers build for the future.
A good compromise is just to have the rough-in, so that is to have the power connection from the panel to the parking spot, and then when the time comes, you can actually install the charger and plug it into that receptacle.
Across the country, there's a mishmash of incentives and regulations for new builds to include varying numbers of EV charging stations, while federally, the government's trying to change the electrical code to make new residential buildings EV ready.
Some condos that are being developed right now that aren't actually putting in 100%. They're doing just, the minimum.
But at least one Toronto developer is going all in on a net zero future.
We will have 4 levels of underground parking, and every one of those spaces will have EV chargers.
It costs an extra $10 to $12 million, but she believes it's worth it.
It's a win-win for the environment. It also is, entices people that purchase a unit here to buy an EV vehicle.
A feature that really would have helped Claude Michon out.
That would be an excellent idea, yes.
And saved him all these trips back and forth. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
People in countries around the world are getting into the holiday spirit, and that includes Peru. Police there are connecting with children in a festive way. Officers dressed as Santa Claus, the Grinch, elves, and other famous Christmas characters performed at a show in Lima. The goal was to spread some holiday cheer and to encourage kids to respect laws, regulations, and stay safe on the roads. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.